terrorism is designed to shock the world, to turn ordinary days into moments of chaos that echo through history. But sometimes the architects of violence meet ends so dramatic, so controversial, or so symbolic that their deaths become global events in their own right. In this video, we look at 5 of the worst terrorist deaths ever, how their final moments sent shockwaves across nations and altered the course of modern history. Osama bin Laden, born in 1957 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, was the scion of a wealthy and influential family, the son of Mohammed bin Awad bin Laden, a construction magnate whose empire spanned much of the Middle East. From an early age, bin Laden had access to resources, education, and connections that would set him apart from many of his peers. He initially pursued religious studies, showing an early fascination with Islamic orthodoxy and radical interpretations of jihad, which would later define his ideology. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, as the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, bin Laden became deeply involved in the Afghan resistance, using his wealth to fund, organize, and train fighters who came to be known as the Mujahideen. He saw the conflict as a holy struggle, a defense of Muslim lands against foreign invaders, and this experience forged both his tactical acumen and his network of Islamist operatives. However, bin Laden's vision soon expanded beyond Afghanistan. By the late 1980s, he had developed a globalist view of jihad, believing that the United States and its allies were the principal obstacles to the establishment of an Islamic order worldwide. He articulated a doctrine in which violent action against civilians and military targets alike was justified to defend Islam and punish perceived aggressors. This ideology crystallized into the formation of the Al-Qaeda, a transnational militant organization dedicated to conducting terrorist attacks on a global scale. Bin Laden's strategic planning, charisma, and financial backing allowed Al-Qaeda to orchestrate numerous attacks, including the 1998 bombings of the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, which killed more than 200 people and injured thousands, and the 2000 suicide attack on the USS Cole in Yemen, which claimed the lives of 17 American sailors. These attacks, however, were mere preludes to the devastating impact he would achieve on September 11, 2001, when Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 commercial airplanes, flying 2 into the World Trade Center towers in New York City, 1 into the Pentagon, and 1 that ultimately crashed in Pennsylvania. Nearly 3,000 people were killed in a single morning, and the attacks transformed the global perception of terrorism and forever altered U.S. foreign policy. Following 9/11, bin Laden became the most hunted man on Earth. For nearly a decade, he evaded capture, moving through rugged mountains, remote compounds, and urban hideouts in Afghanistan and Pakistan. His ability to stay ahead of sophisticated intelligence operations, coupled with his elusive lifestyle, transformed him into a near-mythical figure, both feared and obsessively pursued. The U.S. and its allies invested immense resources into tracking him, employing advanced surveillance, informant networks, and cyber intelligence to locate patterns in his movements. His survival was a constant source of frustration for global counterterrorism efforts, and his continued presence served as a rallying symbol for extremists around the world. The operation that ended bin Laden's life was the culmination of years of meticulous intelligence work. Analysts identified a highly unusual compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, fortified with high walls, barbed wire, and strict security measures. The compound's occupants followed patterns inconsistent with typical civilian life, arousing suspicions that a high-value target was present. After months of monitoring and planning, U.S. President Barack Obama authorized a raid. In the early hours of May 2, 2011, a team of Navy SEALs from SEAL Team 6 executed Operation Neptune Spear. Using stealth helicopters to avoid radar detection, the SEALs infiltrated Pakistani airspace and descended upon the compound under the cover of darkness. What followed was a tense, chaotic, and brief firefight. Bin Laden was shot multiple times, reportedly in the head and chest, ending the life of one of history's most infamous terrorists. His body was swiftly identified through DNA testing and later buried at sea in accordance with Islamic traditions, a measure intended to prevent his gravesite from becoming a shrine for extremist followers. The death of Osama bin Laden resonated far beyond the confines of Abbottabad. For the families of 9/11 victims and other attacks orchestrated by Al-Qaeda, it represented a profound sense of justice, a tangible acknowledgement that accountability could reach even the most elusive perpetrators. Psychologically, it was a devastating blow to Al-Qaeda, stripping the organization of its founder and most charismatic leader, disrupting communications, hierarchy, and operational planning. Strategically, it forced the network to adapt, decentralize, and operate without the unifying figure that had once coordinated global operations. In the wider geopolitical context, bin Laden's death underscored the power and precision of modern counterterrorism capabilities, demonstrating the U.S. military and intelligence community's ability to track and neutralize high-value targets with surgical effectiveness. Yet it also sparked debate over sovereignty, the legality of military strikes in foreign territories, and the long-term consequences of targeted killings in the war on terror. Ultimately, the life and death of Osama bin Laden serve as a tragic, complex chapter in modern history, a story of immense privilege twisted into radical extremism, of global violence orchestrated from shadowy hideouts, and of relentless pursuit by those committed to justice. His death marked not just the end of a man, but a turning point in the global fight against terrorism, leaving behind lessons, scars, and a legacy that continues to influence geopolitics, counterterrorism strategy, and the collective consciousness of a world forever changed by his actions.
Learning more information about the raid that took down ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, his death resonating around the world.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, born Ibrahim Awad Ibrahim al-Badri in 1971 in Samarra, Iraq, rose from relative obscurity to become one of the most notorious and feared figures of the 21st century. In his early years, he was described as quiet, bookish, and unassuming, pursuing religious education and eventually earning a doctorate in Islamic studies. Yet beneath this veneer of scholarly composure lay a mind increasingly drawn to extremist ideologies. The chaos that followed the 2003 U.S.-led invasion of Iraq provided fertile ground for his radicalization. Sectarian violence, weakened governance, and the disintegration of traditional authority structures allowed al-Baghdadi to cultivate influence among disillusioned militants, gradually transforming himself from a background figure into a central actor in the rise of global jihadism. By exploiting these volatile conditions, al-Baghdadi engineered the emergence of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS. Under his command, a relatively small insurgent group evolved into a sprawling, terrifying organization capable of seizing and governing vast territories across Iraq and Syria. Cities like Mosul and Raqqa became symbols of his caliphate, where ISIS imposed draconian rule, executing mass public kidnappings, and enslavement with shocking brutality. Beyond the battlefield, al-Baghdadi was a master propagandist. ISIS's slickly produced videos circulated widely on social media, glorified violence, recruited thousands of fighters from around the globe, and cultivated an aura of invincibility that masked the group's internal fractures. He became a living embodiment of modern jihadist terror, a high-priority target for intelligence agencies worldwide. For years, al-Baghdadi proved elusive, moving through underground bunkers, hidden tunnels, and remote locations along the Iraq-Syria border. His survival depended on extreme operational security and a loyal inner circle that protected him at all costs. U.S. and allied intelligence agencies embarked on a painstaking manhunt, analyzing intercepted communications, satellite imagery, and human intelligence to map his movements. Over time, his presence in Idlib province, Syria, emerged as the focal point for a high-stakes operation that had been planned for months. On the night of October 26-27, 2019, A U.S. Special Operations team launched the culmination of that effort. Delta Force operators, supported by precision airstrikes and real-time intelligence, infiltrated al-Baghdadi's compound under the cloak of darkness. The target site was heavily fortified, with intricate tunnels, reinforced rooms, and booby traps designed to repel intruders. As the raid unfolded, al-Baghdadi reportedly retreated into a dead-end tunnel with 3 of his children. In a final, desperate act of defiance, he detonated a vest and 2 of the children instantly, while leaving parts of the tunnel in ruins. The operation, executed with extraordinary precision, was hailed as a tactical triumph in the global fight against ISIS. U.S. President Donald Trump later described the moment as mission accomplished, underscoring the symbolic and operational significance of eliminating a leader responsible for untold suffering across continents. The impact of al-Baghdadi's death reverberated across ISIS and the broader terrorist landscape. Operationally, the organization lost the charismatic authority that had bound its fighters and maintained a fragile network of loyalty and fear. Psychologically, his death shattered the narrative of invulnerability that ISIS had meticulously cultivated, eroding morale and diminishing recruitment. Symbolically, it marked a turning point in the war against the group, a stark message that even the most secretive and ruthless leaders could be tracked and eliminated. Yet the tragedy of the final moments, particularly the death of his children, underscored the stark human cost inherent in the shadowy world of global terrorism. It was a grim reminder that in the relentless cycle of violence, consequences ripple far beyond the battlefield, touching innocent lives even amid carefully calculated operations. Al-Baghdadi's demise, therefore, was both a moment of strategic victory and a somber reflection on the brutal realities of modern conflict, a chilling illustration of how extremism and terror leave indelible scars on individuals, families, and entire societies.
We're getting more details about the U.S. mission that's the leader of Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri. After years of tracking him, armed forces sent 2 missiles from a drone flying above the Afghan capital, Kabul, which hit him instantly.
Ayman al-Zawahiri, born in 1951 in Cairo, Egypt, emerged as a figure whose intellect and extremism were inseparably intertwined. Trained as a surgeon, he possessed a mind characterized by meticulous precision, discipline, and analytical rigor, qualities that, tragically, were redirected toward orchestrating global terror. From the 1980s onward, al-Zawahiri became deeply enmeshed in militant Islamist networks across Egypt, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. He was a strategist, organizer, and ideologue, combining scholarly insight with ruthless pragmatism. By the 1990s, he had risen to become Osama bin Laden's deputy, the shadowy architect behind al-Qaeda's operational and ideological framework. While bin Laden commanded attention through charisma and spectacle, al-Zawahiri preferred the shadows, overseeing training camps, coordinating attacks, and producing a prolific body of writings that inspired generations of militants worldwide. His reputation for cold calculation, coupled with an unflinching commitment to his cause, made him one of the most feared figures in modern terrorism. For decades, al-Zawahiri remained elusive, slipping through the grasp of intelligence agencies with remarkable skill. He moved between safe houses in remote mountainous regions of Afghanistan and Pakistan, adopting routines designed to avoid detection and evade surveillance. U.S. and allied intelligence agencies spent years reconstructing his movements, analyzing satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and fragmented human intelligence to trace his network. Even as al-Qaeda faced setbacks and leadership losses, al-Zawahiri remained a stabilizing and guiding presence, a figure whose experience, ideological authority, and strategic acumen ensured the organization's survival through turbulent times. By 2022, his presence in Kabul, Afghanistan, a city marked by political upheaval and Taliban influence, became the focal point of one of the most painstakingly planned counterterrorism operations of recent memory. In the early hours of July 31, 2022, This decade-spanning pursuit culminated in a decisive strike. A U.S. drone, equipped with precision targeting systems, swept silently over Kabul, reaching al-Zawahiri's safe house with surgical accuracy. Designed to limit civilian harm, the strike detonated its payload with instantaneous effect, eliminating al-Zawahiri in a single, decisive moment. The operation required years of intelligence gathering, coordination, and patience, reflecting the precision and persistence needed to neutralize one of the world's most entrenched terrorists. For U.S. and allied agencies, the success of the mission was both symbolic and practical, a powerful demonstration that even the most deeply hidden threats could be confronted and removed. The death of Ayman al-Zawahiri marked the end of a long, dark chapter in global jihadism. Operationally, it removed a central figure whose strategic mind had held al-Qaeda together through decades of upheaval, succession crises, and external pressure. Psychologically, his death stripped the organization of its ideologue-in-chief, undermining morale and fracturing cohesion among fighters who had looked to him for guidance. Symbolically, it represented the closure of one of the longest and most persistent manhunts in counterterrorism history. A reminder that patience, intelligence, and persistence can eventually bring even the most elusive threats to justice. On a global scale, al-Zawahiri's removal underscored the continuing commitment of the international community to counterterrorism, signaling that leadership vacuums in terrorist organizations, while destabilizing, can be decisively addressed, even decades after the emergence of the threats themselves. Mohammed Emwazi, born in 1988 in Kuwait and raised in London, United Kingdom, seemed at first to be an ordinary young man. Intelligent and tech-savvy, he excelled in academics and displayed the promise of a bright future. But beneath this unassuming exterior, radicalization had taken root, gradually transforming him into one of the most notorious faces of modern terrorism. Traveling to Syria, he joined ISIS and quickly became infamous under the chilling nickname Jihadi John. In meticulously produced propaganda videos, Emwazi executed Western hostages with a terrifying calmness, his black-clad figure and masked face becoming an emblem of brutality that reverberated across the globe. Unlike traditional combatants, his terror was amplified by the digital age. Each video, clip, and broadcast carried his menace far beyond Syria and Iraq, reaching living rooms and newsrooms thousands of miles away, leaving a psychological scar on nations and families alike. The hunt for Emwazi was painstaking and complex, reflecting both his elusiveness and the stakes involved. Intelligence agencies in the U.S., UK, and allied countries combed satellite imagery, signals intelligence, and human reports to track his movements. Analysts painstakingly reconstructed fragments of evidence from intercepted communications, online activity, and eyewitness accounts, knowing that locating him was not merely about capturing a fighter. It was about neutralizing a symbol whose presence wielded terror on a global scale. Every lead, every verification, every calculated risk carried the weight of preventing further atrocities and ending his reign of fear. On November 12, 2015, this years-long pursuit came to a decisive conclusion. In Raqqa, Syria, a city at the heart of ISIS operations, U.S.-led coalition forces executed a precision drone strike. The mission had been meticulously planned to eliminate Emwazi while minimizing harm to civilians, a reflection of the intelligence and operational care that had gone into the effort. Moments after the strike, Emwazi was killed. His chapter of terror abruptly ended. ISIS would later acknowledge his death, confirming the loss of one of its most notorious operatives, a figure whose infamy had become inseparable from the organization itself. The significance of Emwazi's death extended far beyond the tactical elimination of a single fighter. He had been a weapon of fear, a digital executioner whose image and actions were designed to intimidate, manipulate, and destabilize. By removing him, intelligence and military forces struck at the core of ISIS's propaganda machinery, disrupting the psychological grip he had held over audiences worldwide. Symbolically, it was a moment of accountability. a demonstration that even the most infamous and seemingly untouchable figures could be located and neutralized. Operationally, it sent a clear signal to terrorist networks. Precision, patience, and intelligence-driven action could overcome even the most elusive threats. For the countless individuals and families who had been terrorized by his actions, the end of Jihadi John represented not just justice, but a measure of relief in a world where fear had been broadcast on a global stage. Ejmal Kasab, born in 1987 in Faridkot, Pakistan, emerged from a background marked by poverty and limited opportunities into a path of radicalization that would make him one of the most notorious figures in South Asian terrorism. He joined Lashkar-e-Taiba, an extremist group with ties to Pakistan, and was trained in weapons handling, explosives, and guerrilla tactics. In November 2008, Kasab, along with 9 other operatives, carried out a meticulously planned series of attacks across Mumbai, India's bustling financial hub. The assault targeted iconic landmarks, including the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, the Oberoi Trident, and the Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus train station. Over the course of 3 days, gunfire and explosions tore through the city, claiming 166 lives and leaving hundreds injured, while terror and chaos gripped the metropolis. Kasab's role as a gunman was captured by witnesses and later confirmed by authorities, but unlike his fellow attackers, he was apprehended alive, a fact that would prove critical in unraveling the broader network behind the attacks. Kasab's capture set the stage for one of the most high-profile terrorism trials in modern history. Indian authorities meticulously documented evidence against him, including communications, plans, and confessions, which revealed the operational structure of Lashkar-e-Taiba and its cross-border connections. During the trial, Kasab provided detailed accounts of recruitment, training, and the execution of the attacks, offering rare insight into the workings of an extremist organization. The proceedings were closely followed by national and international media, bringing the human, political, and security dimensions of the attacks into sharp focus. On November 21, 2012, after the exhaustion of legal appeals and thorough judicial review, Ejmal Kasab was executed by hanging in India. Unlike deaths in battle or targeted military operations, his execution represented the measured, deliberate application of the rule of law. It was a demonstration that even those responsible for acts of extreme violence could be held accountable through legal channels. For the families of the victims, the verdict provided a sense of closure after years of grief and uncertainty. For India and the international community, it sent a firm message that terrorism would not go unpunished and that extremist operatives could be brought to justice within a lawful framework. Kasab's death, while final, also carried symbolic weight. It underscored the authority of the state over individuals who use violence to terrorize, highlighting the contrast between indiscriminate acts of terror and the principled pursuit of justice. Beyond his individual fate, the trial and execution served as a case study in counterterrorism law, intelligence work, and international cooperation, emphasizing that holding terrorists accountable requires patience, diligence, and the rule of law rather than solely military might.